planet SCIFI-HFY was unlike any other. Its skies shimmered in shades of violet and gold, while massive floating cities hovered above glowing forests. The Zephyrians, tall and elegant beings with luminescent skin and eyes that sparkled like jewels, ruled this world. But even in a world so magnificent, one princess often felt alone. Princess Lyra, heir to the throne of SCIFI-HFY, wandered through the palace gardens. Her long silvery hair brushing against the petals of glowing flowers, she often felt trapped by the golden crown she would one day wear. Royal duties came with rules, expectations, and an endless series of formal events. She had friends, yes, but few truly understood her. Most saw only the princess, not the girl behind the crown. Her steps were careful, almost silent as she navigated the twisting paths. Lyra liked the gardens because here she felt free. She could run, explore, and dream without anyone watching. The garden's bioluminescent trees swayed in the wind, their leaves humming softly, a sound that always calmed her. But even in this haven, she never walked alone. "Princess Lyra," a soft voice said, almost a whisper carried by the wind. Lyra turned. Standing behind a row of shimmering trees was a figure she had known since childhood. Tall and strong, with movement so fluid it seemed he floated rather than walked. He was always there, always watching. His face was hidden behind a mask, and his armor gleamed in the soft light of the garden. "Kale," Lyra said with a small smile, her fear melting away. "You followed me again?" He did not answer. He never spoke. But his presence was enough. Kale had been assigned to her as a protector when she was just a small child. Even as he grew older and his strength became undeniable, he never revealed his face. And somehow, that made him feel less intimidating and more like a guardian, a friend. Lyra laughed softly. "I don't need you to follow me everywhere. I'm not a child anymore." Kale took a small step closer, his movements precise and deliberate. His hands rested lightly on his weapon belt, not as a threat, but as a reminder that he was always ready. Lyra's smile softened. She knew he would do anything to protect her. Anything. They walked together in silence. Lyra often talked to him, though she knew he might not respond. "Do you ever think about the stars, Kale? About what's beyond Zephyra?" she asked. Kale's head tilted slightly, as if considering her question. Then he gestured toward the floating cities above. Lyra followed his gesture, watching the silver towers suspended in the air. Her imagination wandered. She wondered what it would be like to visit other planets. Other worlds where humans, creatures her people considered weak, might live. Her thoughts were interrupted by a sudden sound. A distant rumble, faint but growing. Lyra froze. "Kale, do you hear that?" He nodded subtly and moved toward the edge of the garden, scanning the horizon. His eyes, visible even behind the mask, glinted with alertness. Lyra felt a shiver run down her spine. Despite her royal training, she had never seen a threat move so quickly, so silently. Before she could speak, a small group of rogue Zephyrians appeared on the path. Their intentions were clear. They sought to capture her. Lyra's heart raced. "Stay behind me," Kale commanded, not with words. But with a sharp movement of his hand, the rogue attackers lunged forward. But Kale moved faster, almost too fast to see. He disarmed them, his strikes precise, his armor gleaming as he moved with the grace of a predator. Lyra's eyes widened. She had seen him fight before, but today it felt different. Every motion was deliberate, almost like a dance. And yet every move carried deadly force. When the attackers fled, bruised and frightened, Lyra ran to Kale. She reached out and touched his arm. You saved me again." He looked at her, and for a brief moment his mask seemed to soften. Lyra smiled, though her hands trembled slightly. She had always trusted him, but today, seeing his skill in action again, she felt something new: admiration, respect, and a strange sense of comfort. Days passed, and the incident left a lasting impression. Lyra found herself thinking about Kale constantly. She began to wonder about him, about his life outside the palace. He had never shared stories, never spoken of his past. Yet he had been there for her through everything, through loneliness, through fear, through every dangerous moment she had faced. One evening, Lyra sat by the palace balcony, watching Zephyra's twin moons rise in the sky. Kale stood silently behind her as always. "Do you think humans are as strong as Zephyrians?" she asked suddenly, her curiosity breaking the usual silence. Kale's head tilted again. The question seemed to reach him in a way no others could. Lyra whispered more to herself than to him. "Sometimes I wonder why the Council trusts only Zephyrians for protection, when maybe strength isn't just about what you see." She did not know it, but Kale's human heritage was a secret. It was known only to a few high-ranking officials in the Interstellar Alliance. And it was a secret meant to protect both him and her. Humans were considered fragile in Zephyrian society. Their bodies were not as strong, their lifespans shorter, their abilities limited. Yet here he was, standing silently beside her, ready to give his life if needed. As she leaned back, watching the stars, a thought struck her. "I don't care what they say. Whoever protects me, whoever stays by my side, that's the person I trust." Kale simply stood there, but she could feel it, the quiet understanding, the unspoken promise that he would never leave. Over the next few years, Lyra grew into a young adult. The bond between her and Kale strengthened. She confided in him her dreams of leadership, her fears about becoming queen, and her secret frustrations with the Council. He listened in silence, always present, always attentive. The Council, however, remained wary. They believed only Zephyrians could hold positions of responsibility, let alone protect the royal family. Rumors of humans being weak and untrustworthy circulated quietly among court members. Lyra ignored them, confident in her protector. But the whispers never left her entirely. One day, the Council summoned her. Lyra walked into the grand hall, her heart pounding slightly. "Princess Lyra," the elder counselor said, "it is time you learn the truth about your protector. This is a tradition among Zephyrian royalty one day. You must see the one who guards you without a mask." Breath caught. "The one who guards me?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Yes," the counselor replied. "All princesses must see the face of their protector. It is a matter of trust, and of understanding who stands beside you in times of peril." Lyra's mind raced. She had imagined many possibilities, but never this. She had never thought about the mask being removed. She had always known Kale as her silent guardian, her friend, her confidant. What if he was not Zephyrian? She tried to push the thought away. "I trust him," she said softly, mostly to herself. The council nodded, seemingly satisfied. "Then prepare for the ceremony," the elder said. "It will take place in the Hall of Mirrors. There, the truth will be revealed." That night, Lyra could barely sleep. She kept thinking about the past years, about all the times Kale had saved her, guided her, and protected her without question. She remembered the gardens, the floating cities, the battles against rogue factions. Every memory reminded her of one simple fact. She trusted him completely. But the uncertainty gnawed at her. She wondered what she would feel when she saw his face. Would it change everything? Would the trust they had built over so many years remain? Or would it shatter, leaving her alone once more? Morning came and the day of the ceremony arrived. Lyra walked down the grand corridors of the palace, her heart beating rapidly. The Hall of Mirrors loomed ahead, its walls reflecting countless images of her in the palace. She entered, and there, at the center, stood Kale. His posture was calm, unyielding, as if he had always known this day would come. Lyra stopped a few steps away, her eyes fixed on him. "Kale," she whispered, though he could hear her clearly. He took a slow, deliberate step forward. Then, almost ceremoniously, he reached up and removed the mask that had hidden his face for so many years. For a moment, time seemed to stop. Lyra's eyes widened. The face before her was human. Pale skin, deep eyes, filled with intelligence and calm, features unlike any Zephyrian. Her breath caught. She took a step back, almost in disbelief. You're human," she stammered. Kale's expression remained steady, unafraid, yet there was a flicker of hope in his eyes. He did not speak, but his presence, as always, said more than words ever could. The council murmured in shock. Zephyrians whispered among themselves, eyes wide with disbelief. Humans were supposed to be fragile, incapable, unworthy of such trust. Yet here was proof that appearances could deceive. Lyra's mind raced. The bond they had built, the years of trust and friendship, would it survive this revelation? Could she accept the truth, or would fear and prejudice take hold? She took a deep breath, steadying herself. One thought stood out clearly above the confusion. He saved her countless times, guided her, protected her. Nothing about that changes because of his species. Her hand reached out slowly, trembling slightly. Kale's eyes softened. He did not move, did not speak, but he waited. He had always waited. Lyra nodded faintly. I trust you, she said, her voice firm despite the shock. The Hall of Mirrors was silent except for the soft hum of SciFi-Prime's energy fields. Princess Lyra's eyes remained fixed on Kale, the human who had been her childhood protector. Even after years of trust and friendship, seeing his face for the first time was like seeing the world shift beneath her feet. The court's whispers filled the air, sharp and full of disbelief. A murmur ran through the assembly of Zephyrian nobles. He's human. One counselor gasped, stepping back as if the truth itself were a weapon. A human guarding the princess? How? How can this be? Lyra's heart raced. She had anticipated shock, perhaps even fear from the court. But nothing prepared her for the intensity of their reactions. For centuries, Zephyrians had considered humans fragile, incapable, and unworthy of positions of trust. They were outsiders, not equals. Yet here stood Kale, proof that appearances could deceive. Kale did not flinch. His posture remained steady, his gaze calm and unwavering. He had expected this, prepared for it. His silence spoke volumes, quiet confidence that only reinforced the truth he had shown through years of loyalty and protection. Lyra took a deep breath. He has been by my side for many years, she said firmly. Every time I was in danger, he saved me. Every time I was afraid, he was there. That is what matters. A few counselors frowned, their eyes narrowing. Princess, the rules are clear, said Elder Soren, a stern Zephyrian with wings that shimmered like molten silver. A protector must be of our kind. Humans are insufficient. Your safety is at risk by allowing this human to serve you. Lyra's chest tightened. She had expected this, but hearing it aloud still hurt. She looked at Kale, who stood silently, a figure of unwavering loyalty. I do not care what the council believes, she said, her voice stronger now. Kale has proven himself in every way. He is worthy of trustworthy of standing by my side. The council murmured, divided. Some nodded in hesitant agreement, recalling the incidents where Kale had protected her flawlessly. Others whispered warnings, reminding the princess of the ancient prejudices that defined their society. Before the tension could escalate further, a commotion erupted outside the hall. Alarms blared throughout the palace, their shrill sound echoing against the mirrored walls. Lyra's stomach tightened. What now? She whispered. Kale moved swiftly toward the balcony. Lyra followed, her heart pounding. From the palace vantage point, she could see smoke rising from the outskirts of the city. A fleet of foreign ships hovered near SciFi-Prime's atmosphere, dark, angular and menacing. They're here, Kale said, finally breaking his silence. His voice was calm but edged with urgency. An intergalactic warlord has arrived. He seeks the princess. Your lineage makes you a target. Counselors froze, panic spreading like wildfire. Impossible, shouted one noble. We are protected by the strongest Zephyrian fleet. No human, no outsider could withstand such a force. Lyra's gaze met Kale's. She felt a strange mix of fear and determination. Then it's time we show them they underestimated us, she said. Her voice, though trembling, carried authority. The hall erupted into action. Kale quickly assessed the situation, moving with precision to organize the palace's defense. His human instincts, honed through years of training and strategy, allowed him to anticipate the enemy's moves. Zephyrians, although powerful, often relied on tradition and protocol. Kale relied on adaptability and quick-thinking human traits that now became invaluable. The first wave of attackers descended, their ships firing energy blasts toward the palace. Lyra watched from the balcony as Kale directed the Zephyrian guards, positioning them strategically. His commands were simple, but effective, cutting through the chaos with clarity. "Hold the gates," he shouted. "Use the energy shields. Protect the civilians." The Zephyrian guards hesitated for a moment, unsure about following the instructions of a human. But the certainty in Kale's voice left no room for doubt. Slowly, they moved as he directed, their coordinated defense pushing back the attackers' first wave. Lyra's eyes widened in awe. She had always known Kale was capable, but seeing him orchestrate a defense against an intergalactic army was astonishing. Each human tactic, each decision he made, turned the tide of battle in their favor. Zephyrians, who had doubted humans for centuries, now had no choice but to follow his lead. As the battle raged, Lyra realized something she had never fully understood before. Humans, while not as physically strong as Zephyrians, possessed something equally powerful: adaptability, creativity, and courage. Kale embodied these qualities, proving that strength was not limited to appearance or heritage. A flash of energy struck near the palace gates. Lyra instinctively ducked, but Kale was already there, intercepting the blast. His movements were precise, calculated, and fearless. He shielded her from the explosion with his body, taking the brunt of the energy. "Kale!" Lyra shouted, fear gripping her. He looked at her, unflinching, a small nod reassuring her. "I will always protect you," he said simply, his words carrying the weight of years spent guarding her life. The council, watching from their elevated positions, could not help but notice the humans' bravery. Even the most skeptical nobles found themselves reevaluating their prejudices. Humans, they realized, were not weak. They were resourceful, courageous, capable of acts that Zephyrians themselves had never imagined. The battle continued for hours. Kale led counterattacks, using human ingenuity to outmaneuver the enemy fleet. He directed Zephyrian ships to form defensive formations, anticipating the warlords' strategies before they unfolded. The attackers, confident in their superiority, were caught off guard by the unexpected tactics. Lyra, observing from the balcony, felt a surge of pride. She had always trusted Kale, but now the entire palace could see what she had known all along. The bond they shared was not defined by species, it was defined by loyalty, courage, and trust. During a brief lull in the fighting, Lyra approached Kale. "Why didn't you tell me you were human?" she asked, her voice trembling with emotion. Kale looked at her, his expression calm but earnest. "It was not important," he replied. "What mattered was keeping you safe. Your life, your trust. Those were more important than revealing my origin." Lyra's eyes softened. She understood now that his silence had never been deception, had been protection, not just of her, but of the fragile balance between Zephyrian tradition and human capability. The enemy, realizing their tactics were failing, intensified their assault. Ships surged forward, energy blasts cutting through the sky like lightning. Zephyrian defenses faltered under the pressure, and panic began to spread. Kale assessed the situation quickly. "Lyra, stay close," he said. "We must evacuate the civilians to the underground shelters. Follow my lead." They moved together through the chaos, Lyra following his every step. He guided the citizens with efficiency and care, ensuring that everyone was safe. Zephyrians who had doubted him before now followed willingly, trusting his leadership without question. As they reached the last group of civilians, an enemy strike targeted the path ahead. Lyra froze, fear gripping her heart, but Kale acted without hesitation. He intercepted the attack, using his human ingenuity to redirect the blast and protect everyone behind him. The civilians cheered, their fear giving way to relief and admiration. For the first time, many Zephyrians realized that humans were not weak, they were strong, in ways that complemented their own abilities. By nightfall, the first wave of the enemy fleet had been repelled. The palace stood, slightly damaged but intact. Lyra looked around at the aftermath, her chest still pounding from adrenaline. She turned to Kale, who stood silently, surveying the scene with unwavering focus. You saved them all, she said softly. He nodded, as if it were no great feat. But Lyra knew better. Every move, every decision, every act of courage had saved countless lives. Humans, she realized, could be heroes in their own way. They were not limited by tradition, by appearance, or by what others expected of them. The council gathered around, their expressions mixed with awe and hesitation. Elder Soren stepped forward, his eyes meeting Kale's. I underestimated you, he admitted, his voice heavy with humility. Perhaps. Humans are not as weak as we believed. Lyra smiled, feeling a sense of vindication and relief. She had known the truth all along. Kale has proven himself more than anyone could expect, she said firmly. He is worthy of trust, respect, and loyalty, not because of his species, but because of who he is. The hall was silent for a moment, then slowly the council began to nod. The prejudices that had dominated their society for centuries were not gone, but they had been challenged by one human and the bond he shared with a princess who trusted him above all else. As night fell over SCIFI-Prime, the princess and her protectors stood together on the balcony, looking at the stars. The first wave of the warlord's forces had been defeated, but the battle was far from over. Yet Lyra felt a newfound confidence. With Kale by her side, she knew they could face any challenge, no matter how impossible it seemed. In that quiet moment, Lyra realized something profound. Strength was not defined by birth, species, or appearance. It was defined by courage, loyalty, and the willingness to act when it mattered most. Humans, she understood now, could be more powerful than anyone had ever imagined. The skies above SCIFI-Prime burned with fire and energy as the warlord's fleet returned. This time, they brought more ships, larger weapons, and a determination to claim the princess and her planet. The first wave had been repelled, but the enemy had learned from their mistakes. SCIFI-Prime faced its greatest threat yet. Princess Lyra stood on the balcony of the palace, her silver hair catching the glowing light of the twin moons. Behind her, Kale moved with quiet confidence, preparing for what was to come. The human had proven himself already. But this battle would test them both in ways neither could predict. Kale, Lyra said, her voice steady, despite the fear she felt inside. They're stronger this time. I don't know if we can hold them. Kale looked at her, calm and unwavering. We will hold them, he said simply. Humans adapt. We find solutions. We fight together. Trust me, Lyra nodded. She had learned to trust him years ago, and nothing, not even the revelation of his human nature, had changed that. His courage, his intelligence, and his unwavering loyalty were all she needed. And now, SCIFI-Prime itself depended on them. The enemy fleet descended like a storm, energy weapons lighting the skies. Zephyrian defenders fired back, their bioluminescent armor glowing as they engaged in aerial combat. But the warlord's forces were relentless, and for every ship destroyed, two more seemed to take its place. Kale moved among the defenders with a speed and precision that amazed even the most experienced Zephyrians. He directed the fighters, anticipating enemy maneuvers, creating traps and ambushes that turned the tide in favor of the palace. Lyra watched, her heart pounding. I've never seen anyone fight like this, she whispered to herself. Not even the greatest Essevian warriors. A sudden blast hit near the palace walls, sending a shockwave through the air. Lyra was thrown to the ground, but Kale was already there, pulling her to safety. His movements were flawless, instinctive, and fearless. Stay close to me, he said, his voice low but firm. We can't let them separate us. Lyra nodded, holding on to him as they moved through the palace corridors. Together, they guided the royal guards, ensuring that the civilians were evacuated safely. Zephyrians who had doubted humans now followed Kale without hesitation. Recognizing his skill and leadership, the warlord, observing from his command ship, was furious. He had expected to take the princess easily, to show SCIFI-Prime that no one could resist him. Instead, A human, not a Zephyrian, was leading the defense with brilliance and courage that defied all expectations. Lyra felt a surge of pride. She had always known Kale was extraordinary, but seeing him in the full heat of battle was different. Every decision, every movement, every command he gave turned fear into hope. Humans were not weak. They were adaptable, courageous, and brilliant in ways the Zephyrians had never imagined. The battle raged on for hours. Kale fought alongside the defenders, not only directing them, but engaging directly with the enemy when needed. His human reflexes and ingenuity allowed him to anticipate attacks, disarm traps, and protect the princess and civilians alike. Zephyrians, though strong and graceful, relied on tradition and training. Kale relied on creativity, intuition, quick-thinking human traits that now made the difference between life and death. At one critical moment, the warlord's flagship descended, targeting the palace directly. Lyra's heart raced as energy beams struck the walls, shaking the palace foundations. Kale assessed the situation quickly. "We need to strike at their command center," he said. "It's the only way to stop them." Lyra's eyes widened. "But it's heavily guarded. Even Zephyrian warriors would struggle." Kale shook his head. "Humans do not give up. We adapt. We fight smart, not just strong. I will lead a team. Follow me." Lyra did not hesitate. She trusted him completely, knowing that his strategy and courage would guide them. Together, they gathered a small team of Zephyrian warriors and human allies who had secretly trained with Kale over the years. Their mission? Infiltrate the flagship and take out the warlord before he could destroy the palace. The journey to the flagship was perilous. Energy blasts streaked past them, and enemy fighters attacked relentlessly. But Kale's leadership and quick thinking allowed them to navigate the battlefield with precision. Zephyrians who had doubted humans now saw firsthand the value of adaptability and courage. When they finally reached the flagship, the team encountered the warlord's elite guards. The fight was intense, but Kale's human ingenuity turned the tide. Using clever tactics, he outmaneuvered the guards, creating openings for the Zephyrian warriors to strike. His human resilience and determination inspired the entire team, giving them strength when hope seemed lost. Lyra fought alongside Kale, her movements guided by his instructions. She had trained for leadership, but seeing him in action taught her more than any lesson in the palace ever could. Humans, she realized, were not defined by weakness. They were defined by their courage, intelligence, and unwavering loyalty. Finally, they reached the warlord's command center. The battle there was fierce, but Kale's strategy was flawless. He anticipated the warlord's moves, countering attacks with precision and leading the team to victory. The warlord, overwhelmed and outmaneuvered, was defeated. The flagship exploded in a controlled detonation, and the team escaped just in time. SCIFI-Prime was safe, thanks to the courage and ingenuity of a human who had once been underestimated. Back at the palace, the council gathered around Kale and Lyra. Elder Soren stepped forward, his expression humbled. "I was wrong," he admitted. "Humans are not weak. They are clever, courageous, and loyal." Today, Kale has proven that strength is not defined by species, but by action. Lyra smiled, her eyes meeting Kale's. "I have known that for years," she said softly. "Strength is about loyalty, courage, and the willingness to act when it matters." Kale has all of that and more. The council nodded, slowly accepting the truth. The prejudices that had dominated Zephyrian society for centuries were challenged, perhaps forever changed. Humans were no longer outsiders. They were allies, respected and trusted. That night, Lyra and Kale stood together on the palace balcony, looking out over the glowing forests and floating cities of SCIFI-Prime. The battle was won, but the galaxy was still full of challenges. Lyra turned to Kale, her heart full of gratitude and admiration. "I never doubted you," she said. "Even when I saw your face for the first time, even when the council questioned you, I knew you were the one I could trust." Kale's eyes softened, a rare smile appearing on his human face. "I will always protect you, princess," he said. "No matter what comes next." Lyra nodded, feeling a sense of peace she had never known. The bond between princess and protector, forged over years of trust, danger, and loyalty, was stronger than ever. Together, they'd faced the impossible, and humans had proven their worth beyond any doubt. The people of SCIFI-Prime celebrated their victory, honoring both Zephyrians and humans alike. Stories of Kale's courage spread throughout the planet, inspiring new generations to look beyond appearances and prejudice. Lyra, standing beside her human protector, realized something profound. The galaxy was vast and full of unknown dangers. But with trust, courage, and loyalty, even the most impossible challenges could be overcome. Humans were no longer underestimated. They were respected, celebrated, and essential allies in the survival of civilizations as the twin moons rose high in the sky. Casting silver light over SCIFI-Prime, Lyra felt hope and determination. She had seen the best of both worlds, the grace and strength of the Zephyrians, and the ingenuity, courage, and loyalty of humans. Together, they were unstoppable, and for the first time in her life, Lyra felt truly ready for the future, ready to lead, ready to protect, and ready to face whatever the galaxy had in store. With Kale by her side, she knew that no challenge was too great, no threat too strong, and no enemy too clever. Humans had risen, not just in strength, but in respect, courage, and honor. And SCIFI-Prime would never forget the lesson that a single human, brave and loyal, could change the fate of an entire planet.